people here have seen her channel. Okay, you guys have all seen her. Okay. She does something called direct voice channeling, which is where she's actually making a connection with her guides, and they speak through her. So that's a skill that she's developed, and she's very good at it. And so she was doing this, and I immediately was connected to this guide that she was channeling, and I immediately felt my vibrational frequency increase, and I really felt like there was a message there that they were trying to communicate to me. And I later on had a conversation with her about it, and we had this exchange where she said, it's really strange. I never sit in on other people's speeches. For some reason, I felt guided to come in while you were doing your speech. And I said, I never sit on other people's speeches either. I never have time. I'm always doing appointments. And so we had this exchange, and I had told her, I had shared with her an experience that I had been in Sedona 10 years prior, and this woman that I met, I had gone to a session. This was before I started doing readings professionally and everything. And I'd had this really well-known woman in Sedona, and she starts telling me, do you know you're from the star system, and that you're supposed to be channeling and these, and she's telling me all this stuff, which sounded kind of weird to me at the time. And I was like, okay. And I was with 3 of my friends that day, and we'd done this girlfriend's trip to Sedona, and so we left, and I got this reading of all this that she had told me I was supposed to be channeling, and that I had this gift, and I wasn't really connected with it. And so later on I asked my girlfriends, I said, did she tell you guys the same thing? And they looked at me like I was nuts. They're like, no, she didn't say anything like that. I'm like, oh, that's weird. So I was sharing the story with Solara, and she said, you are. So, okay, so we had a little private exchange there, and that night I went home and I did channel, and I did receive information from them that I was able to look up online the next day and verify as fact. So it was a very interesting experience for me, and since then I've always been guided to include them in my speeches regarding spirit guides, because they are definitely, there are higher galactic beings that I never really acknowledged before, but they have come through. And I think if you've ever seen her demonstrations, I don't do the direct voice channeling. When I channel, like in my sessions, I hear the information, I see pictures, so it's kind of a conglomeration that comes to me, and then I relay it to the client in a way that I think they're going to respond to. So that's the way I do my channeling sessions. She has a different style, so but thank you for asking that question, because I always feel like they're like behind me, kind of pushing me now, like, don't forget us, because I heard them coming through when I just went, oh, there they are again. They're not going to let me off the hook. So, yeah, thank you for that question. And I think someone was wanting you to ask that. Does anyone have any questions about that?
So the galactic beings are from another
system? The star system that I was told, that I felt connected, was the Syrian star system. And when I was channeling, they told me that they were the Syrian Rainbow Teachers of Light, was the information that I got. The group that Solara channels is the Palladians. Palladian star system, I believe, is Syrians and the Palladians.
Arcturians.
Okay. She has a website. So I don't want to speak on her behalf. I can talk about our exchange that I had with her. But as far as her channeling, you probably want to look at her website. But my understanding is the Palladians and the Syrians, and so that's her. Yeah, a lot more. So she's very experienced at working with that group of guides. I was more experienced with the angels. I have always been guided by the angelic realms. So it's kind of like, I've gotten information from both those groups. So that's why when I talk about this now, I call it your spiritual support team, because I don't like to say, because everyone's going to have a different connection with their own group or their own vibrational frequency. There's no cookie cutter approach, in other words. There is a lot of spiritual support out there, and that's the point. That's the main point, is to acknowledge that spiritual support is there, that you can make a connection with that, and you can receive guidance. And if you ever get stuck in your life, it's just such a great tool to learn to develop, because when I started doing this more professionally and teaching workshops, because there have been several instances, and I don't have time to go into detail about my personal experiences, but where I have really been in crisis. And when I've used these tools and when I've asked for guidance, I have received very strong information that changed everything and shifted the outcome and really got me back on the right track. When I try to get in the driver's seat in my ego mind, and I'm going to figure this out, and I'm going to, or I'm going to stay in my corporate job because that's what you're supposed to do, and that's where you get a steady paycheck, and then Spirit has another plan. If you don't listen to the Spirit plan, things don't tend to work out, do they?
No.
Yeah, things just go a lot smoother when you connect with that spiritual support team and pay attention to the messages that they're sending you and follow the guidance. If you follow the guidance, you are most likely going to experience more peace, prosperity, joy, and love in your life. Right?
Thank you so much. You're ahead.
Very well prepared. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
And Danielle,
Yes.
I have a mudra for guidance along with this.
Yes, I was about to mention when Felise was talking about all the different ways you can get into a higher vibration, we mentioned mantras, but we didn't mention mudras, and mudras are a beautiful way to connect to Spirit. So there are hundreds of different ways, and you have to find the way that works for you. Most recently, I've been dropping off my daughter every morning going to Laguna Beach High School, and I have been making a point no matter what. Sometimes I'm there for 3 hours, and sometimes I'm only there for 20 minutes, but I go to the beach every morning. And I'm really lucky, about half the mornings I see dolphins. And there is just something amazing about their energy. And so if you go to Laguna Beach, there's a nutrient-rich kelp bed right off of Main Beach. And the dolphins like to feed there when the tide is out. So there's not very many waves, so the water is really, the tide is out, the waves are very flat, and so that kelp bed is then actually very close to the shore. And you can see dolphins flipping in pods of anywhere from 4 or 5 to 10. And they'll stay for about 20 minutes or a half an hour. And what it does for me vibrationally to see them, there's no words to describe. I mean, it just makes my entire day. And they give me messages. And they have such a wise, playful wisdom. So whether you go for a walk in the park, or if you go barefoot and get your feet in the ground, that's a great way to raise your vibration. And so I wanted to comment, when you start doing channeling work, you want to set that intention, as Felise said, to work with the highest vibration. After you have done it a while, your vibration, your body remembers. And when you start getting into that place of beginning to work, your body knows, oh, we're working. We go to that higher vibration. And it isn't that you no longer need to ask, but your body automatically knows when you're in that higher vibration. As Vassal said, Archangel Michael is there, and no one's going to let the lower vibrations come in. The only time the lower vibrations will come in is if you are scared and you haven't set your vibrations to high, then they will resonate with you. It's all about resonance. When your vibrations are high, you'll bring in the highest guidance. And it's the same thing that I've been preparing you, that we're going to talk about afterwards now, is when you're around people, work, friends, and family, it's always a vibrational resonance. It can't help but be anything else. If you are vibrating really high, the people around you will have a high vibration. And if for some reason they can't, they simply just go away. They say, oh, I have something to do, or I'll see you later. But the two vibrations can't coexist if they have a huge dichotomy in their level. So when you raise into that higher vibration, and there are different ways to channel. You can just hear a message and all of a sudden you know what to say, or you can do a non-trance channel like what Solara on Ra does, where she will get into that